The civil-military bureaucratic regime that seized power in April 1953 was determined to engineer efficient solutions to the challenges faced by Pakistan. Led by the Governor-General, the regime enjoyed the full support of General Ayub Khan, who had, in January 1951, become the first Pakistani commander-in-chief of the Pakistan Armed Forces. The challenges identified by the regime were the need to break the constitution-making deadlock, solving the representative problems that arose from Pakistan's geographic and demographic profile, sealing the emerging mutual defense deal with the USA, which was formalized by treaty in 1954, and managing the appearance of multi-party democracy. Insofar as the constitutional deadlock was concerned, the first Constituent Assembly had sat in October 1947, but did not seem to be moving beyond debating basic principles, even as 1952 progressed. The Constituent Assembly was widely believed to be delaying the process in order to extend its own life. Indeed, it did not seem to have trouble passing laws, 46 of which were passed and implemented even without the assent of the Governor-General. Elected on the basis of limited franchise, and having sat for over 5 years, the democratic legitimacy of the Constituent Assembly was doubtful. The Governor-General resolved to take matters into his own hands, and on the 27th of October 1954, dissolved the Assembly. This was challenged in the Sindh Chief Court, where the verdict came in favor of the Constituent Assembly. The central government appealed the decision to the Supreme Court, where Chief Justice Muhammad Munir creatively applied the doctrine of individual necessity to the Governor-General's actions and declared in favor of the dissolution. This paved the way for a new Constituent Assembly to be convened, with the former civil servant, Chaudhry Muhammad Ali, appointed as Prime Minister to push through a new constitution. This meant that bureaucratic minds would at last be able to devise rational solutions to the problems that vexed the politicians. Much of this vexation stemmed from Pakistan's territorial and population distribution. West Pakistan, with about 45% of the population, accounted for 85% of Pakistan's territory. West Pakistan was further divided into different types of entities. There were 4 provinces: Punjab, Sindh, Northwest Frontier Province, NWFP, and Balochistan. Federally administered tribal areas, FATA. Provincially administered tribal areas, the Balochistan States Union, the princely states of Bahawalpur, Khairpur, Swat, Dir, and Chitral, Pakistan's portion of the disputed territory of Kashmir, called Azad or Free Jammu and Kashmir, AJK, and the Capital Territory, Karachi. While West Pakistan had 14 major subunits, East Bengal, with 55% of the national population and 15% of the territory, was a single province with one dominant ethnicity and language. The solution adopted was to turn West Pakistan, minus AJK, into a single province with its capital at Lahore, establish equal parliamentary representation for each wing, with East Bengal renamed East Pakistan, and a 40% quota for civil service recruitment for East Pakistanis. These changes were rapidly effected in 1955, and a new constitution was moved through the Second Constituent Assembly in haste, taking effect on 23 March 1956, which is celebrated annually as Pakistan Day. On the foreign policy front, the regime moved to secure an alliance with the USA and thus consummate the courtship that had begun under Jinnah. The formal alliance was signed on the 19th of May 1954 as the Mutual Defense Assistance Agreement. Pakistan would receive as a consequence of this agreement almost $1,000 more of military equipment, enabling Pakistan to raise a new armored division, equip 6 squadrons with US jet fighters, add 12 warships to its navy, modernize its military communications system, and train its armed forces to a high standard. This assistance reinforced the pattern of governance and national strategy adopted during the lean years of 1947-55, when Pakistan survived while relying almost exclusively on its own resources. Managing politicians and democracy was an altogether different challenge. The possibility of a combined opposition to the regime was keenly felt, and the forcible merger of the 4 provinces in the western wing into the so-called one unit in West Pakistan, in order to achieve something approaching parity with the more highly populated eastern wing, had the effect of galvanizing subnational movements, which found themselves denied even a provincial identity. President Iskandar Mirza was convinced that his chance of staying in power in the event of fresh national elections was less than 10%. Mirza maneuvered his way through 4 prime ministers, including Chaudhry Muhammad Ali from the Muslim League and H.S. Suhrawardi of the Awami League, and in September 1956 he founded and became chairman of the Republican Party. which split from the Muslim League due to disagreements over matters of republicanism and conservatism. When Mirza's last prime minister under the 1956 constitution, Feroz Khan Noon, broke with him and attempted to bring about a revival of the Muslim League, the situation reached a crisis point. Seeking and securing the support of General Ayub Khan, who was still commander-in-chief of the army, having made himself indispensable, in order to stage a coup d'état, Mirza abrogated the constitution on the 7th of October 1958. General Ayub Khan was appointed Chief Martial Law Administrator, CMLA, and the avowed aim of the coup makers was to establish a form of democracies suitable to the genius of Pakistan's people. As an interim measure, the ordinary provisions of the abrogated constitution were to remain in effect, and the civilian courts would administer martial law regulations under the supervision of the CMLA. Mirza appeared to think that he could carry on as before, draft a new constitution to his liking, and then remain president after it was approved. The military, however, was by this time tired of playing second fiddle to civilian and military bureaucrats turned politicians, and tensions between the president and his chief enforcer rose rapidly. On the 27th of October 1958, Mirza was overthrown by the army and exiled to the UK. With this change, Pakistan came under direct army rule, and the equilibrium within the governing powers shifted in favor of its military component.